Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show. A lot to go through today, so we're going to cut past some of the chit-chat and get right to it. Jason Zaleski here, and along with Steve Maves, we'll take you through all the weekend football action, high school, college, NFL. Girls basketball starts this week, actually tomorrow on Tuesday. Full slate of games and a whole bunch of other stuff, but we will, like I said, we'll get right to it here as we had Level 4 football, and 14 teams across the state of Wisconsin punched their ticket to Camp Randall, and in Division 7, and we'll work our way up the list from there. Blackhawk, Warren, Illinois, over Lord's Academy, 34-7. So Blackhawk back in the state championship. They are the reigning Division 7 state champions. And over in Carson Park on Friday night, Mike Warren, Todd Schultz, Trevor Zaleski, all in on the fun over there and calling and producing that Bangor-Edgar game, another rematch, Cardinals-Wildcats. Another one will go down in history. And this one, Edgar comes out on top, 27-7. So the Edgar Wildcats back in the state championship again, the 8th time for head coach Jerry Sins. 40-plus year career, Steve. He's been 8 times now at the state championship. Of course, won a number of them. And we'll have a chance at another one on Thursday. This game starts at 10 a.m. And Edgar and Blackhawk going at it again. Steve, I know maybe you've had a chance to... highlights, by the way. Highlights, Edgar Bangor are out there on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. You can see all the fun that everybody had out at Carson Park on Friday night. But another Edgar Blackhawk 2 years in a row. Yeah, absolutely. And last year went in, as we mentioned, the favor of Blackhawk. Just looking through some stats and watching back at the game last year, Edgar had 4 fumbles, a couple of interceptions. The first play of the game, Carson Butt with a big fumble. Yeah. Edgar had a 15-8 lead at the end of the first quarter. Blackhawk able to shut him down for a 22-15 win. But again, Blackhawk-Edgar has turned into a nice little rivalry. And now with the co-op with Blackhawk and Warren, Illinois, there were a lot of people questioning why Blackhawk and Warren were in Division 7 still, but because of enrollment. But they were looking at wrong information, and Travis Wilson set them straight online about enrollment. But it should be another good game. Edgar able to overcome some self-inflicted wounds on Friday night and take care of Bangor, as you mentioned, 27-7. We were Steve and I called that game last year, and we'll call it again this year. We were looking through the program, and I think it showed like 99 kids in the high school for Bangor. So if you say, well, it's a 50-50 split, you got 45 boys in the high school and 40 on the football roster. Yeah. So it was almost full participation. We'll see what the roster shows on Thursday morning. Again, that game will start at 10 a.m., kickoff 10 a.m. In Division 6, St. Mary Springs took on Mondovi. Springs was the D5 champ last year. They dropped down. They moved divisions to Division 6, and they handle Mondovi 13-0. So Mondovi held scoreless, and St. Mary Springs advances to yet another state title game. They've been in a number of them. Again, just mentioned they won the Division 5 state championship in 2018. And then over at Doré Field in Chippewa Falls, it was Regis and Abbotsford, 2 number 1 seeds, tangling up on that one. And Steve and myself had the pleasure of calling that game. 36-6 Regis. It was essentially Regis from start to finish over in Chippewa on Friday night. Yeah, and it was, as you talked about during the broadcast, able to really set the edges where Regis offensively, their offense is something like I've never seen before. The quarterback gets in, just flips it right away to the running back. So then he's got the quarterback, 2 other running backs, and then the whole offense line to block for him. And Tristan Root, one of the best running backs in the area, or in the state, I guess, just speed-wise. And
Brennan Seelan is able to, or Bennett Seelan, whatever quarterback's name was able to throw the ball when he needed to. They didn't throw the ball a whole lot all year long, but as you mentioned, Regis from start to finish, and they'll have their hands full, obviously, with St. Mary Springs. I was looking back a little bit at that Mondovi Springs game. Mondovi had the ball at the 3-yard line late in or midway through the fourth quarter, and they fumbled it on the snap, and that would have cut into the lead, obviously, but Springs able to hold off. Bob Highland back in the state championship game, number, I think, 16. He had 8 in WISA, now 8 in the WIAA, and so Highland working on his 50th year, I think, next year. So Springs and Regis should be one heck of a Division VI championship game.
Yeah, that game will kick off about 25 minutes after the conclusion of Edgar and Blackhawk Warren. Highlights of that, a full game. You can find the full game over on YouTube at Zaleski Sports, Abbotsford and Regis. Congratulations to the Falcons. Coach Nat Miller, one of the finest coaches in the state of Wisconsin, had his kids prepared. Just too tall of a task on Friday night. Over in Division 5, Prairie du Chien and Lake Country Lutheran went at it. Another shutout. This one in Division 5, 25-0. The number 1 seed, Lake Country Lutheran Lightning, will take on the winner of Stratford Amherst. That game was on Friday. Highlights of that game on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. And Stratford came into the game undefeated and unscored upon, and that ended in the second quarter. Steve, Amherst with the touchdown. They do fall 19-7, so Stratford moves on for the second consecutive year to the Division 5 state championship game. We've got all state players that we're going to run through the list, and a number of Stratford kids made the all-state list in 2019, but Stratford Amherst, it was a classic, one for the ages on Friday night. Yeah, and it was,
as we mentioned last week, a nice rivalry that has really come fruition with Amherst really with the football program coming around. As you mentioned, 19-7. If you're a local football fan and like high-powered wide receivers, Ian Hall of Amherst, a sophomore, is going to be phenomenal. He just athletics over and above everybody else right now.
Is he the one who hauled in that touchdown?
Yeah, the touchdown for Amherst. And then, as you mentioned, Amherst able to score 7-6. They were winning.
That's right.
They were beating Stratford. Stratford obviously trailing for the first time all year long. And as you go back and watch the highlights and watch some of the comments of the Stratford players, just go ahead and listen to what Ben Barton and Max Schwab and all those fine gentlemen have to say about trailing for the first time this year and having the edge to get back and score and make another trip to state, this time against the Lightning of Lake Country Lutheran.
Jason Vanden Elzen on the field post-game conducting those interviews. Thanks to Jason for joining the team and making sure that all the kids get recognized on the field, or a lot of kids get recognized on the field afterwards for the work that they've done. Gene Delisio from 1450 WDLB on the call. Lucas Hoheisel produces that game. And again, highlights are found on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. Compliments of Kobe Riedel. There, talking about mentioning some names, all the names here on this team. But Stratford and Lake Country Lutheran, again, we don't predict high school sports here on this broadcast, but I'm telling you, Lake Country Lutheran better watch out.
Yeah.
That's what I can say there. I don't think they've seen anything like they're going to see on Thursday afternoon. That game will start likely sometime in the 4 o'clock hour. Stratford, Lake Country Lutheran, and that one could get away quickly, I think, on Thursday, but you never know.
Yeah, and they were lucky that they got to where they are. I mean, they beat Lamira in overtime. They were trailing Lamira in level 2, 6-0 for a good majority of that game. And then Lake Country Lutheran able to come back, tie it up, and win the game in overtime, but able to just squeak by Lamira in level 2. So, as you mentioned, it could get away pretty quickly on Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, certainly could. They, like I said, they just have not seen anything like the Stratford Tigers. And let's be honest, most teams in the state of Wisconsin have not seen anything like this year's version of the Stratford Tigers. Coach Tubbs and the rest of the guys will be ready. They're hungry. They're back again. And they think they've got some good things going on in this school year over at Stratford High School with all the athletic programs over there. All right, in Division 4, and we were looking forward to this one, Steve, because it took place at Bigfoot High School. And as you correctly noted last week's show, Bigfoot High School, all capital letters here on the brackets, so it's big. That's how they do it there. River Valley, the 2 seed, took on Catholic Memorial, and Memorial comes out with a big 42-7 win. On the other half of the bracket, over at Appleton East, it was Wrightstown and Kiel, the number 3 seed, upset-minded Wrightstown bunch, and they were downed by Kiel 24-14, so Kiel Catholic Memorial in Division 4. That'll be the last game of the day on Thursday. That game probably starts somewhere around 7:30 at night. In Division 3, first game of the day on Friday at Camp Randall Stadium. Again, all these championship games, again, take place at Camp Randall Stadium, home of the University of Wisconsin Badgers. Over at Slinger, that was one of our good names last week, at Slinger High School, number 1 DeForest took on number 1 New Berlin Eisenhower, and DeForest comes out with a 14-9 win. And then over at Hiding Field in Marshfield, again, I know a lot of folks from the area took in that game if they weren't necessarily fans of Edgar Abbotsford or Stratford. And again, I don't know who these people are, but there are some. And they went over to Marshfield High School and they watched Menasha upset Menominee, Menasha the 2 seed, 36-35. How about that for a score, Steve? I didn't see any stats there. Maybe you did, but 36-35, that sounds like a good game.
Yeah, and again, Menasha, a team that wasn't expected to even make it past West Superior in level 3, able to get a nice win over Menominee. And again, that's going to be one heck of a game to start off day 2 of the state championship against DeForest. Menasha coming out of the Fox Valley area, same conference as WIAA and West Superior. I've been able to cover WIAA the last couple of years, and Menasha just big. They just got some big boys over there, and it's going to be one heck of a game. Obviously, knocking off 2 number 1 seeds, looking for number 3 when they played DeForest on Friday morning.
All right, in Division 2, in this game starts sometime around 4 o'clock on Friday. On the right half of the bracket, number 2 Waunakee took on number 3 Waukesha West, and Waunakee comes out with a 34-15 win over at Kettle Moraine High School. And on the other side of the bracket, 2 4 seeds, and one of those seeds, Marshfield fans will remember Superior, as they took down Marshfield 44-37 in the opening round game up at Superior, and then Superior upset Pulaski, and then upset my Galloping Ghost of Kaukauna, and they took on Brookfield East, and East the 4 seed, and East made their way through the bracket. They beat Slinger, they beat Brookfield Central, the 1 seed, and then they took down the number 2 seed Menominee Falls, so 2 upset-minded teams. It means we're at least going to have 1 4 seed at Camp Randall, and in this case it is Brookfield East 34-8. And that game took place over at Merrill, so Brookfield East had their way with the Superior Spartans 34-8. So Brookfield East and Waunakee in Division 2, and then what a lot of folks get all geared up for, that Division 1 game, and it's always a good one. These are some high-flying players over in Division 1. On the right side of the bracket, number 1 Madison Memorial took on number 1 Muskego, and Muskego comes out with a win over in Oconomowoc, 49-13, put the hurting on Madison Memorial. On the other side of the bracket, it was number 1 seed Bayport taking on the most boring football team in the state of Wisconsin, number 1 seed Kimberly, and the Bayport Pirates, 42-28. So they crush Kimberly and sets up a big-time showdown in Division 1, Bayport and Muskego.
Yeah, Bayport making their first ever trip to Madison. And again, it was a 42-28 game, but just listening to people and reading things that people wrote down and put on Twitter, it wasn't even that close. I mean, Bayport handily took care of Kimberly, which, as some Badger fans know, Alec Ingold, now with the Oakland Raiders, Bayport alumni or alum, and Muskego just marching through again, taking care of Madison Memorial with a running clock in level 4, and taking care of Madison Memorial, a team that a lot of people thought would give Muskego a game, but Muskego just an all-around fantastic program and looking for back-to-back state championships on Friday night.
That game slated to take place sometime around 7 o'clock on Friday night. You can watch those games on TV, and that would be one to watch. If you're going to settle in around the living room television, or maybe at your favorite restaurant, that would be one you want to maybe take in. That should be a good one. Just two teams that have a lot of interest, a lot of good football players, a lot going on there. It should be a good one there. All right, Steve, you're going to fact check me on these as I'm just reading these for the first time. So these are the All-State football players here in 2019. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody as I'm going through this list for the first time, fresh off the presses, hot off the presses here. And I will do my best to mention Central Wisconsin football players here only. From Stratford, Ben Barton on the All-State offensive line team. And moving, like I said, right down the list here, I know I saw a couple others. Vaughn Bright, tight end, All-State tight end here in 2019. Defensive lineman, how about this? Ben Barton on both sides of the ball, All-State here in 2019. Jacob Michelson, defensive end, All-Stater, senior, 6'3", 250-pounder. And Jacob made a cameo appearance on A Day in the Life, Chandler Schmidt. You can watch that over on Facebook at Zaleski Sports, not on YouTube at Zaleski Sports. You've heard about A Day in the Life before. We won't cloud up these All-State mentions by that. But Jacob Michelson, congratulations to Jacob, defensive end, All-State here in 2019. Justin Shaner from Stratford. Stratford cleaning up here on this list, and I guess there's really no surprise there. Of note, Jack Leverins from Lake Country Lutheran, also All-State linebacker. So those two will go at it on the field on Thursday. As we comb down the list here, Edgar comes in with Caleb Haferman, defensive back, All-State in 2019, and Edgar's Austin Miller, 2019 All-State kicker. All right, Steve, did I miss anybody there for what they call small school All-State?
Yeah, I don't think so, except that Ben Barton was small school defensive player of the year.
There you go.
And then Tyler Tenner of Racine Lutheran, who broke the rushing record again this year. Bryce Hittner last year getting that record before the state championship game, and now Tyler Tenner, the now new rushing leader in high school football in the state of Wisconsin.
All right, take a look at large schools. I don't see anybody here locally from the large school list that is named an All-State player. I will call a couple out, though, that I found interesting here. All-State quarterback Johnny Davis from La Crosse Central. Of course, he's a basketball commit to the University of Wisconsin, so doing it from the quarterback position. And, again, let that be heard by student-athletes all across the area. Play multiple sports. You can be good at multiple sports, and those other sports will get you conditioned and better at what you think is your best sport. And Johnny Davis really leading by example there, as he's All-State in football, and he's also going to go and play Division I basketball. Of course, he still has a basketball season here to fulfill, and I know La Crosse Central and the gang there have their sights set on the Kohl Center again in 2019. And then Nina's Jack Van Dyke. He's a preferred walk-on for the University of Wisconsin at kicker, and he was named All-State at the kicker position in 2019. Anything I missed there?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right.
Hunter Wooler of Muskego Defense Player of the Year, just a junior, has 5 offers from Iowa, Minnesota, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. So one to look out for on Friday afternoon or Friday night in that Muskego Bayport game as well. Stratford's
Marshall Lehman was selected as the WFCA Assistant Coach of the Year, so congratulations to Coach Lehman. Coach only gave up 7 points all year, so I think that's probably a pretty easy pick there for the voters.
Yeah, and he's starting to rack up the awards of it himself. Won a state championship in baseball last spring, so congratulations to Marshall Lehman.
All right, high school football, that was a lot there, and that's why I said we're gonna cut the chit-chat here today and get right to it, because there was a lot there to discuss. All right, moving on to NFL scores from yesterday of note. One score in particular missing from the list, Green Bay Packers did not play, had the bye week. So on your bye week, you are often taking a look at your other divisional opponents and seeing how they did. Well, so the Bears lost. I know that the Lions lost. My Cowboys took care of the Lions. The Bears lost last night in Los Angeles, 17-7. And it was 35-27, Cowboys over the Lions. Dak Prescott wears number 4. He went for 444 yards. Wow. And 2 weeks in a row now with over 400 yards passing for Dak Prescott as he searches for $40 million on that contract. And I'd say at this point he's going to get it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So the Lions lost, the Bears lost. That's a good day for the Packers. I don't know, though, that those two teams are going to clamor and make any noise for a divisional championship. So the Vikings are what you look for. And the Vikings, Steve, were dead. They were dead in the water. It was 20-0.
Yep.
20-0, I think, at halftime. Yep. And when you know it, those pesky Vikings come all the way back and beat the Broncos 27-23.
Yeah, there were two games to keep an eye on if you're a Packer fan yesterday, Denver, Minnesota, and then Arizona and San Francisco.
Right.
The two teams that Green Bay needed to lose, both had comeback wins. I mean, Minnesota, as you mentioned, was down 20-0 at halftime. They came back with a 27-23 lead. Denver had a chance. They had the ball at their own 40-yard line with over 6 minutes left. They marched down the field, 2 seconds left, and just unable to hit the tight end Noah Fant in the end zone. And then the San Francisco-Arizona game, as Jimmy Garoppolo, another comeback. Arizona was up 16-0 in that game, and San Francisco came back to win 36-26. Green Bay, San Francisco next Sunday night, the number 1 seed in the NFC, the 49ers, number 2 seed, Green Bay Packers next Sunday night on NBC.
Other scores of note from the league yesterday, New England took down Philadelphia 17-10. That was a game that the Eagles, I believe, were up 10-0, and then New England scored 17 unanswered to win that game. And Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, just doing all kinds of stuff. Holy man, he's just a special athlete right now. We'll see what happens in the future. There have been other quarterbacks and other guys come in the league and did some unnatural things, and eventually it all catches up with them. But 41-7, Baltimore takes down Houston. And then New Orleans, you talked about some of the teams in the NFC, New Orleans, Green Bay, San Francisco, all right now jostling and positioning for that number 1 seed, and the Saints 34-7 over the Buccaneers. Tonight, Monday Night Football, Kansas City and the Los Angeles Chargers from Mexico City. And the Mahomie is back on the field tonight for Kansas City again for the second week in a row. Kyler Murray, I'm just going to make this note back to that San Fran-Arizona game. He came in the league with, I don't want to say some controversy, but just some people kind of looking out of the side of their eye at him because he kind of held the NFL hostage a little bit. He tempted and he threatened baseball, and maybe so some people had an interesting opinion of Kyler Murray that maybe, I don't know, punk is too strong of a word, but something like that. And so he was asked about losing that game yesterday, and he says, "I'm used to winning."
Yeah.
Well, rookie, not in the NFL. That's the way that works, and not used to winning. So yeah, that was a tough one. They lost kind of in a tough way. Like you said, they were winning for a while there. All right, got about 8 minutes or so left on today's Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here alongside Steve Maves as we take you around the weekend action here. And we're going to divert from the weekend action, and we're going to look ahead here. As I mentioned at the top of the show, girls basketball is here. Games starting tomorrow, Tuesday the 19th, a full slate of games across the state of Wisconsin. A lot of them. And a number of them are going to happen right here in central Wisconsin. The Spencer Rockets girls basketball team going to open their 2019-2020 campaign at home against WIAA Fremont. So the Rockets and the Indians going at it there. Rib Lake and Columbus Catholic up at Rib Lake High School. And we've got a whole slate of Coach on the Couch interviews all set to go. A lot of these interviews already been done. We're just waiting to do our grand release, open the curtain on those. But you see all the local Central Wisconsin girls basketball coaches on the couch. I interview all of them as our season preview series. Auburndale and Greenwood, that game will be live at ZaleskiSports.com. Auburndale and Greenwood on Tuesday. The Apaches and the Indians going at it there. And other games in the area, that's about it. I guess Wild Rose Lord's Academy. So girls basketball is here. And then on Thursday, it's Assumption at Auburndale. And that game can be heard live on 1320 AM WFHR. And you can also watch live at ZaleskiSports.com. Also on Thursday, Medford visits Marshfield. A game on 1450 AM WDLB. And live at ZaleskiSports.com. And then Friday, our other featured girls game of the week is Neillsville, and for the life of me, Steve, I forget who Neillsville plays on Friday as we're just kind of whipping through these here. I'll circle back to that here in just a minute, but Coach Geyer and his Neillsville Warriors will start their season and their home game on Friday. There we are, Neillsville Loyal. So what better way to start it there than a Clover Belt game? Girls basketball is ready to go.
Yeah, and that game, Assumption and Auburndale, is spicy one to start up the season. I mean, obviously Assumption has made runs the last couple of years. Auburndale trying to get back atop of the Merriwood. And it's going to be one heck of a game to start off the year. As you mentioned, a slate of games tomorrow, 99 in the state tomorrow, 5 more on Wednesday and 98 on Thursday night, and a lot of good basketball going on in the central Wisconsin area. And it's going to be a lot of fun this winter. It's incredible how fast it's come around already. Boys basketball starts today. Dan Witter of Wisconsin Rapids in his 30th season. He posted on Twitter this morning that he's ready for season number 30 at the helm for the Red Raiders. So boys basketball starts today. Practice does. Girls games start tomorrow. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a fun winter to follow all these basketball teams, wrestling, and hockey as well throughout the winter.
Of course, Steve, across the state of Wisconsin, there are still 14 boys basketball teams that are they'll start practice today, but they'll have light practices because anybody that's playing football is not able to participate in basketball practice yet. Well, for one reason, they've got football practice to go to, but the other thing, the WIAA doesn't let them start that until their football season is done, and then they even give them a few days off after that. So just to kind of transition from one sport to the next. But you're right, basketball. Practices across the state of Wisconsin will take place all over today, and then girls basketball Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And again, you can find the live video schedule at zaleskisports.com. And again, as we pair with radio stations from around the area, including 1320 AM WFHR and 1450 AM WDLB. And this is news to Steve here as I sit here and tell you this, but beginning next week, we will give you each week the boys and girls, what we're going to call the Power 5 teams in the area. These are not necessarily rankings, and just to prove so, we'll give them to you in alphabetical order, but rather these will be teams that we think are highly skilled, or teams that you just need to go out and watch, and they'll be in alphabetical order to prevent the look of a ranking, because we're just not going to get into that.
Yeah, no.
And we're going to lump them all in no matter the division, so that would be a little strange anyway. But yeah, there we go. Steve says, okay, I got it. I'm on it. We'll start that next week. We think that'll be a fun little twist. And just to help folks out there understand and get primed up for what games to watch each week and what teams they should be taking a look at for whatever reason it could be. One reason a team could be in a Power 5. They may have somebody approaching their 1,000-point threshold. There could be some other reasons why. Coach could be headed towards a milestone, or the team is just performing really well. So we'll look forward to the Power 5 for boys and girls basketball each week. All right, Steve, we're going to bring in a gentle landing. Got just a few minutes left here on the Zaleski Sports Show. We'll take a look at college scores from college football, back to football here, from Saturday. And number one ranked LSU, 58-37 over Ole Miss, who I think is the number one team in the country, Ohio State. They are ranked number 2, though, according to ESPN, 56-21 over Rutgers. An interesting game to watch was number 4, Georgia. They took on number 12, Auburn, 21-14. Georgia ranked number 4. They were beaten by unranked South Carolina, who did not rush the field, by the way, when they beat Georgia. And then some sad news, I guess you could say. Number 5, Alabama, did win their game 38-7, but they lose Tua, and the hip injury is reportedly serious enough where the NFL may lose Tua as well. Yeah,
and they were talking about how it's the same injury that Bo Jackson had that ended his career, and they got him in time. They got him to the hospital. They flew him to Alabama from Ole Miss or wherever they were playing to get them all back. But again, that is a scary situation for a number 2 quarterback, number 3 quarterback going in the draft. and it's a big hit to the Crimson Tide, but a lot of people questioning what Nick Saban did. They were up 35-7, and to a big loss for Alabama, and possibly a team that was, as you mentioned, looking at him in the draft next spring.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Number 8 Minnesota lost at number 20 Iowa 23-19. So with the Badgers beating Nebraska, 14th ranked Wisconsin 37-21 over the Cornhuskers. That puts Wisconsin back in the Rose Bowl, perhaps, or at least with that chance, should they beat Minnesota here in 2 weeks. Then, of course, they'd have to beat Ohio State later on, but that could elevate their bowl position with Minnesota losing to Iowa. We'll see, though. Badgers have been known to disappoint this year, so we won't get our hopes up too much.
Yeah, they're in their own driver's seat. They have Purdue next week, a very winnable game, obviously, their last home game. And then if they're able to knock off Minnesota, then they have the tiebreaker over the Golden Gophers, and that will put them into the Big Ten championship game and win another Big Ten West Conference title.
Other college scores, number 3 Clemson easily got past Wake Forest, 52-3. Oregon over Arizona, 34-6. Number 6 ranked Ducks continue to win. Number 7 Utah gets past UCLA, 49-3. Penn State had to stave off Indiana. Indiana was ranked in the AP, not ranked in the ESPN poll, but 34-27. The Nittany Lions hang on and win that one, and rounding out the top 10. Oklahoma, number 10 ranked team, just got by Baylor, 34-31. Baylor Bears, their first loss of the year. All right, well, I think that was enough.
Yeah.
A lot going on, but made sure to give it all to you again. State championship football all begins Thursday at 10 a.m. as Edgar and Blackhawk Warren kick off this year's 2019 state football championships at Camp Randall Stadium. Basketball season kicked off tomorrow for girls basketball. That's Tuesday. And we'll kick it off here on Zaleski Sports, and we'll bring you live Greenwood at Auburndale. And then 2 more games on Thursday, and Niels will wrap up our live schedule on Friday. All right, there we go. It's a full week yet.
Yeah.
No rest over here, and that's okay. We don't need any rest. We're just going to keep chugging along here. All right, so for Steve Maves, Jason Zaleski telling you thanks again for listening and watching to the Zaleski Sports Show. Have a great week, everybody, and go Sports.